Okay, so we got a nice layer of snow that ties all of it together. Again, creates yet another layer to draw the viewer even deeper into the painting. We've poked around with some whites, got that rhythm going back and forth there a little bit, I think. Now, bright snow has dried a little bit. Again, checking back of the hand, still some moisture into here. This mat we're going to take off, and I'm thinking it's a little too small. I like it. I want it to be able to breathe a little bit better. So we're probably going to keep this at a 22 by 30. Again, those decisions get made down the line. I want to start coming in with some trees here now over top. Fastest way to suggest depth is to overlap. So I want to, again, every time I come in on that tree, I want to start at the bottom, and I want to put another branch up onto that. I'm going to try to pick up some of those scratches that I had from before. Let's see, can you see any of that? Let's just bring that over there. There, we're going to play in this area here for a little bit, into here. Looking for dark. So I don't even really care about the color other than, you know, it's going to have a brown in it. I don't want to start introducing new colors into here. I want to create some of those strong verticals. And the thing that really keeps, in my mind, that's critical at this point is the rhythm in between. I don't want to start planting all of these all the same distance apart. So I want to pay very close attention to the negative shapes, the shapes in between those tree shapes. Look like they're all fairly spaced out evenly, which is exactly what we don't want. So we're just going to start adding other little ones into here and just break up that space. And again, it's not so much about the stroke itself, it's about those spaces. We spend all of our time worrying about making a tree look like a tree, or a leaf, or a petal, or a flower, or whatever it is that we're painting. And we quite often forget to look at the spaces, what's being left behind. For every positive shape you make in your painting, you create two negatives. So one of the questions I often ask my students in a workshop, what's more important, the positives or the negatives? And a lot of times we say the positives because that's what we're focusing on. But I like to pay equal, if not even more attention to the negatives. Here's a very critical line coming across, overlapping that area right here. It's working for me now. That's not too bad. Starting to break up that rhythm into here, so my eye doesn't go rocketing down there because there's nothing there. I have to, if I'm going to get down this slope, I'm going to have to take my time because I'm going to keep bumping into all of these trees. Speaking of trees, let's go back over into here. We talked a little bit about that one at the very, very beginning, so we're going to come back into here and give this a little special attention. Again, remember, it is closer because it's farther down. We did have an issue here at one point with that tree engaging that shape, creating what I refer to as a tangent. It's still there. This one here, we're just going to darken this one up again, bringing that sense of that tree coming in from behind the building. Again, fastest way to suggest depth is to overlap. We always think of color, warm color, or we think of value, and those are all good ways to create overlap and to create depth and dimension and distance. But in my world, and the way I look at this, the fastest way to do that is just to overlap. Something is behind, only if something's in front. Farther back, I got to put something in front of it. Like, I take that line overlaps that building, and that building now just starts to disappear back farther into the background. So this is that push and pull business. When we get into the composition, light and dark, all that good stuff into there. This is now work. I had my fun a while back there playing and just throwing all that wonderful color into there and just chucking that paint down. Now I'm working. I have to stop and craft this rhythm, the energy, the flow, the feel to keep my eye moving and not have it get hung up anywhere I don't want it to. There we go. Back over into here, we had scraped out a tree. So again, we're going to come in, same mixture. Paper is dry, giving me a nice drag on my brush here, creating some nice textural marks. Notice that I'm holding this brush at the end. So even if there's a shake because I've had too much coffee or my hand isn't as steady as it was when I was younger, that's okay because these lines aren't necessarily going to be straight lines. Flick a few little marks up into here. That's still on camera. This area in here is a little unresolved and I desperately want to bring something in front. And when I get stuck, I can go two ways. I can put a brush in front and say, gee, do I like that? But I got to watch that I've got one here and I've got one here. There's my center point. So I've got to make sure that I don't split that in half. That probably would be better there. The other way to resolve this, and we'll show you this in an upcoming video, is to put it under a sheet of glass. Now underneath here, you can see the reflection coming off here. There's a sheet of glass underneath that. So when this was dry, I could just slide this up underneath, take my whiteboard marker, and determine if I needed another tree. We're going to bite the bullet here. I'm not 100% sure this is the way to go, but it's one of those Bob Ross moments, right, where you're just going to say, don't worry about it. You're just going to have to get in there and you're just going to have to make that decision, and the decision is such that we're going to come up into here. There we go. I want that tree. And again, starting at the base, each time I put on a branch, I want to go up to the base. And that ensures that my base of my tree always stays thick enough to support whatever foliage or whatever branches are on there. There we go. Again, there's that sense of that overlap. I think that was a good choice. Do I want to have one closer to me than the other? Because right now they're at the same point off the ground, which means they're at the same distance, and they're almost twins. They're at the same angle, going out the same. So let's change that up, and let's bring this guy down. Tree, or this shape rather, is closer to me because it's lower down. Not bad. I want to come in very quickly with a darker color here, burnt sienna sepia. Just do something. All right, this here is a little crazy. I don't care for that too much. Like the fact that I can kind of halfway see this line continuing through the trees. Not at all displeased with that. Next step will be we're going to bring the figures in. Okay, well, we're getting near to the last stages here. We're going to play with the figure. While this was drawing, I went through my thing of tracing papers, my pile of tracing papers. I found this image right here. This is the guy I want to play with into here. And I took the liberty, when I was off camera, to just transfer this. Let's put this up here. Can we see them both at the same time? There we go. Just a transfer. And I basically took this plastic over top and I traced the outline. But what I did then after was I took this pack horse and I made it a little bit bigger and I lowered it down. So I covered up that and I brought this pack horse down. Now, remembering that the closer a shape is to the bottom, the closer it is to the viewer. If he's heading into the barn, then the pack horse is going to be behind him. Therefore, it has to be lower than the rider, it's also closer to me, not by a huge amount, but enough that I wanted to make this shape a little bit bigger than what my tracing did. Now, the next step here is to figure out where I want to put this guy. Now again, with my approach to painting, I have lots of different options. I can put this guy anywhere I want. Now, I want you to pay attention that these shapes will not change height. They don't get bigger or smaller. But watch the relationship between these figures and this building. As I move this down closer to the bottom, look how big that building becomes. Absolutely huge. Now watch the scale as I move these figures closer. So we still got a little bit of distance to go over this hill, through that white, into that. But now that's still a big barn. That's still a tall opening, but it feels a little bit better in terms of scale. The other thing I want to be very, very careful of is I've got a vertical mass here, and I've got a vertical shape there. I don't want to center these figures in between these two verticals, nor do I want to center this figure between the edge of this shape. Zoom in here for you. That's better. I don't want his head or these figures centered between here and here. I don't want this, because that's too static. It's a formal balance within that. So I either have to move the rider there, which now starts to get a lot of confusion, a lot of things happening up into here, or I'm thinking here. I like that a little bit better. Distance from the edge of the shape to the tree is different on both sides. It's not splitting the shape in the middle. It's not splitting this distance in the middle. And I believe I'll have enough when I bring in my yellow ochres and some white accents. I should be able to set this guy off nicely against this cool neutral back up into there. So I think that's where I'm going to go with my figures. I'm going to return my original tracing back there. Take my piece of black carbon paper, slide that underneath there, and I'm just going to trace out this figure first. All right, see you in a bit.